Now, members of parliament have enough policy headroom to bring down the cost of living in addition to scrapping proposed taxes in the finance bill of 2022. And as Brenda Kerubo reports, Kenyans have welcomed the move but are still concerned about the high cost of basic commodities.
The Finance Bill 2022 had set the stage for another round of increased taxation to the average Kenyan. But this was not to be after the National Parliament rejected a number of proposed tax measures. This, in essence, leaving Treasury CS Ukur Yatani with limited options to meet the huge budget deficit. This means Treasury will now have to go back to the drawing board and assess other areas it can target to raise taxes or alternatively increase the external debt.
The authority has been doing very well in terms of surpassing their targets, and based on those projections and the economic activities that's going to abound next financial year, we are confident about raising that amount of resources, at least reaching the target.
We are in a growth environment now. The economy is projected to have grown by 7.6% in 2021. We are projecting a growth of 6%. And that growth is the one that we have factored in as we have factored in higher revenues. Because without growth, you wouldn't then be able to generate additional revenues.
The government had forecast to raise 51.6 billion shillings in additional revenue by increasing taxes on items such as maize flour, cassava flour, alcoholic beverages and motorcycles. But the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning opposed the move, citing it will further increase the cost of living for the common mwananchi. The parliamentarians also proposed that inflation adjustment be revised from annually to after every 2 years because a yearly inflation impacts on taxpayers' capacity for production and investment.
Right now, many Kenyans are struggling financially and to afford these basic commodities. And we still need these commodities to go lower than they are right now. So it's bravo to the MPs, and I urge them to maintain that one and not approve any tax to the basic commodities.
Lakini naona hata gas washukishi, hata construction materials pia washukishi.
Inflation, a measure of annual changes in the cost of living, hit 6.47% in April from 5.56% in March. Items like fuel, cooking oil, soap and cooking gas hit the highest level since September 2021.
Maharagwe sasa gunia moja imekuwa 80,000 na pesa juu. Na unajua wakati ule wakulima yani watu wananunuliwa kwa bei ya kiasi, kila mtu asiumie, inafika mwisho 500 na 100. Na sasa imeenda sana. Hata mbazi sasa imeenda sana. Kwa sababu kilo 90 sasa imekuwa 9,000.
Medium class wako chini, wanaumia, wanalalamika, pia hakuna mvua. Watu wengine wanatarajia kupata mafuno ya mvua. Sana saa hii hakuna. So serikali inaweza angalia itushukishie bei.
Other taxes opposed by the committee include a deposit of 50% of disputed amount with the Commissioner for Cases, a proposal to increase capital gains tax from 5% to 15%, betting tax from 7.5% to 20%, and excise duty on spirits, beer and wines. The committee noted that these proposals, if enacted, may not necessarily lead to higher revenue collection, as people may resort to betting in offshore companies and drinking illicit alcohol. The recommended changes to the finance bill will likely keep the cost of these goods largely unchanged if adopted by the House before it takes a break on June 16th. Brenda Kerubo, KTN News.
Now, the banking sector has recorded stellar performance for the first quarter of 2022, marked by increased incomes and reduced loan loss provisions. Noakib Kemboi takes a look at how various banks fared and what really drove the numbers up.
KCB Group profit after tax surged 54.6% to hit 9.9 billion shillings in the 3 months ending March 2022 from 6.4 billion shillings in a similar period last year. This is boosted by a growth in total income and reduction in loan loss provision. The National Bank of Kenya recorded a profit after tax of 395 million shillings for the Q1, marking an increase of 72% compared to a similar period last year. Total operating costs, excluding loan loss provisions, increased by 5% to 2 billion shillings year-on-year, driven by increased investments in cybersecurity and strategic bank projects. Absa Bank Kenya, on the other hand, reported a profit after tax of 3 billion shillings for Q1, a growth of 22% compared to a similar period last year. Total income grew by 12% to 9.9 billion shillings, primarily driven by higher net interest income, which went up by 15% year-on-year as a result of increased lending. Non-funded income grew by 6%, driven by new innovations and continued digitization. And finally, Coop Bank Group recorded a Q1 profit after tax of 5.8 billion shillings compared to 3.5 billion shillings reported in 2021. In its results, the bank's gross non-performing loan book reduced by 5% from last year, with NPL ratio improving to 13.3% against 15.2% in a similar period last year. Now keep Kimboy.